Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. I hope you're ready to learn more about the life of David. We talked last week about how Absalom had fled and he was away from his family for 5 years. We're going to talk some more about David's son, Absalom. We talked about how he was beautiful. Now, it's kind of weird to describe a man as beautiful, but we talked about his hair and how long it was and how he would cut it every year and it would weigh 4 pounds. The Bible tells us that Absalom was without blemish. So he looked good. He looked good on the outside. But what have we learned about him on the inside, boys and girls? Yeah, the inside's pretty stinky. Okay, he has a sin nature and a flesh just like the rest of us. And that seems to be what comes out more often than not in the life of Absalom. Well, in chapter 14, verse 6, it says, "And thy handmaid had 2 sons, and they strove together in the field." And I am reading you the wrong verse, boys and girls. Let's flip to chapter 15, not 14. Sorry about that. Verse 6, "And on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel." Absalom is sitting in the gate, and when people would come and they'd want to talk to David and tell him his problems and get a solution from David, Absalom would stop them there and he would do what the people wanted. He wasn't letting the people get to David. So people were liking Absalom more and more. Absalom helped us. Absalom did this nice thing. Absalom's awesome. Everybody loves Absalom. And he is stealing the hearts of the people. Well, Absalom goes to his dad David and he says, I've made this vow. Is it okay if I go to Hebron and fulfill this vow? And David says, that's fine. You can go to Hebron, no problem. Go there, fulfill your vow. Well, boys and girls, when we look at chapter 15, verse 10, we realize that Absalom wasn't very honest with his dad. Verse 10, "But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, As soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. And with Absalom went 200 men out of Jerusalem that were called, and they went in their simplicity, and they knew not anything. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's counselor, from his city, even from Gilo, while he offered sacrifices. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom." Absalom brings out people to follow him. Brings out 200 men. He gets Ahithophel, who is one of David's counselors. He gets him on his side. And Absalom is building a side. He's building a team. He's building an army. What does Absalom need an army for? What do you think Absalom's going to try to do with that army? That's right. He is going to try to get rid of his dad. Wow. What a life Absalom's leading. What an effect David's sin has had on his family. Well, boys and girls, there are several servants who are willing to follow Absalom, and they're willing to join his side. A messenger comes to David and he says, "David, you have no idea what's going on. David, the hearts of the people are following Absalom." And David looks at his servants and he's like, "We've got to flee." He didn't want any harm done to the people of Jerusalem. He didn't want a battle fought there. So he says, "We've got to leave. We have got to get out of this city." So David's servants and several do leave with him. Absalom hadn't won everyone over. David takes his family and he flees. In chapter 16, at the beginning, it says, "And when David was a little past the top of the hill, behold, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, met him with a couple of donkeys saddled, and upon them 200 loaves of bread, and 100 bunches of raisins, and 100 of summer fruits, and a bottle of wine." So Ziba, Mephibosheth's servant, comes out, and he offers food to David. While David is fleeing the city, he brings him food and different things. Boys and girls, we had said that Ahithophel, we're going to have quite a few names in this lesson. I'm going to do my best to keep them straight. Ahithophel had been David's counselor who had switched to go with Absalom. Counselor meaning advisor, somebody who's going to give him wisdom. Well, we're going to find that David has other counselors as well. Verse 5 says, "And when King David came to Beersheba, Behold, thence came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came. So while David is traveling, while David is fleeing, he's trying to get away from his son. This man comes out and just starts cursing him, starts making fun of him, starts calling him a bloody man. And the people who are with David, they get upset. They're like, they want to take after him. This man, Abishai, he's like, let's go, David, let's kill him. He's making fun of you. You're the king. We can't let this happen. Well, what is David's response? Does he say, yeah, go get him? Well, let's look at what verse 10 says. And the king said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord had said unto him, curse David. Who shall then say, wherefore hast thou done so? And then in verse 12, it may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for this cursing this day. David says, you know what? We're going to let the Lord take care of it. The Lord's take care of us so far. We're going to let the Lord take care of him. He says God could turn it out for good. And that's where we turn to Romans 8:28, which says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. David knew that God could work all things together for good. Even though David had sinned and he was reaping the repercussions of that, David knew that God could work things out for good. While Shimei continued to curse David, he actually threw stones at him and cast dust, made it very difficult for them while they were traveling. But through all of this, boys and girls, David is still trusting God. David is at a very low point in his life. David is running for his life from his own son. This isn't King Saul. This is his own son who is chasing him. And David's at a low point, but what does he do? He puts his focus on God, not only in the good times, but in the bad. Boys and girls, in Romans chapter 12, verse 17, it says, recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. So even though Shimei was cursing David, David shouldn't curse him back. We shouldn't give evil for evil. Just because somebody's mean to us, we shouldn't be mean back. Verse 18, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. As much as you can, be peaceable with those around you. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves. Don't take vengeance for yourself. Don't get back yourself. Don't get even, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. The Lord will take care of it. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him, not like Absalom who killed his enemy. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. And verse 21, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Boys and girls, while David's fleeing for his life, he isn't worried about taking revenge on people who are doing evil. He's worried about pleasing God and putting the focus back on God. He tells Abishai, God's going to take care of it. God will take care of Shimei. Boys and girls, how often do we want to seek revenge? Quite often, if we're perfectly honest. That's our first thought when someone wrongs us, most of us, okay? Our sin nature is, let's take revenge. But boys and girls, we shouldn't. David knew God would take care of it. David didn't need to do anything to Shimei because God would take care of it. And boys and girls, is God your focus, even in the low points? I don't think that anyone who's listening is on the run from a family member, physically on a run from a family member who's trying to kill them. But boys and girls, even then, David's focus was on God. Is your focus on God? We're not that far away from Easter. Have you already lost focus of Christ and what he did for you? I hope not. Make sure your focus is on God.